studio today. This gentleman is a community organizer for the Piedmont Environmental Council. Peter Krebs is undoubtedly a stakeholder and influencer in the Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and Central Virginia communities. Very excited to spend an hour talking and chatting and picking this man's big, beautiful brain. We will talk the pilot program that Michael Payne has, again for a second time, pitched on his social media channels. Essentially, in a nutshell, his program, Payment in Lieu of Taxes, is an ask of the university to up their game on payments to Charlottesville City on the real estate holdings they have. So we'll chatter about this with Peter Krebs. We will talk the 10-cent tax rate increase with Peter Krebs, gentrification with Peter Krebs, school reconfiguration with Peter Krebs, an action plan for Biscuit Run Park in the urban ring of Albemarle County with Peter Krebs. We will chatter many updates from PEC, Piedmont Environmental Council, including the Rivanna River Pedestrian Bridge. We will chat Charlottesville and Albemarle County with this guy. This is your opportunity to sit back, enjoy the conversation and the interview. It's long-form content, an hour. I don't think anywhere else you're getting long-form like this. And it's time for us to take a deep dive on topics that matter to the community. Judah, you are the director, my friend. Everything is a go on my end, so we are now in your hands, sir.
How long is our segment?
Guys, good Thursday afternoon. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love Seville show. We are live in Charlottesville, Albemarle County, across Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world here on the I Love Seville network. And I'm very excited, and I've been excited for about 48 hours after coordinating through Facebook Messenger with Peter Krebs and his participation in this show. This guy is smart. This guy is connected. This guy has vision. His exact title is Community Organizer for the Piedmont Environmental Council. He is a stakeholder in a number of different realms in this community: green space, transportation, biking and walker and pedestrian and runner safety. He has tremendous perspective on zoning. We will chatter the impacts of a tax rate increase and how it applies to gentrification. We'll talk school reconfiguration. We'll talk the Rivanna River and its pedestrian bridge. We will talk Biscuit Run Park in Albemarle County with this guy. He is as well-read and as close a follower of topics in this community as me, as Lloyd Snook earlier this week, as Michael Payne. The guy just knows the community like the Pope knows holy water. We want to thank Skooma Boutique Dispensary for being a part of this show. The best dispensary in Charlottesville is on the downtown mall next to Rapture Restaurant, and it's Skooma Boutique Dispensary. We give some props and love to Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Integrative Medicine. Who's got your back? Dr. Wagner's got your back. And Ting Fiber Internet is the crazy fast internet behind the I Love Seville network. We will welcome Peter to the program in about 4 minutes. If you have praise, perspective, or questions that you'd like to relay to Peter, please put them in the feed now, and I will mention them to him in about 4 minutes on the show. Before I get to Peter Krebs, I want a couple of items that I need to get out of the notebook first to relay to you. Folks, by now you know, Glenn Youngkin, yesterday afternoon, signed into law Senate Bill 739, a bill approved by the Virginia General Assembly that makes the wearing of face masks by students optional when on school property. This law supersedes previous state law, including Virginia Senate Bill 1303, and as of March 1, so we're talking, less than 2 weeks here, parents will have the choice of whether their sons or daughters wear masks at schools. This is something that has been the topic of conversation on this network and on the tips of tongues of parents across the Commonwealth. There's no more lightning rod of an issue than what Youngkin has signed into law, empowering parents with their choice with children in masks at schools. A couple of questions that I have, the following. If you notice, the Albemarle County Public School System and its superintendent, Dr. Matthew Haas, sent out a letter to all parents yesterday about this. Buses, school buses, transportation are currently exempt from the new Youngkin executive order. That means children on buses will have to wear masks no matter what. I'm curious if Youngkin's administration will pursue school buses next. And I'm curious if Youngkin's administration will utilize this angle or this slant. The buses are owned by the public school systems, and my executive order applies to public school systems. So that's something I'm very curious about. Will the bus riding and mask on buses be the next focal point for Glenn Youngkin, who campaigned on empowering parents when it comes to masking in their children? The second topic that I think we should follow closely. We are hearing from doctors, and it's not just a few, but quite a few, that as early as the start of the fall semester, COVID positive tests with students in school systems will begin to be treated like the flu. And the flu in public schools, if you go 24 hours after being diagnosed with the flu and you show no symptoms for 24 hours, you can return back to school. Many doctors are telling me, frontline doctors, that that's going to be the approach for kids, for public and private schools starting this fall. So if you get a positive test on Monday, you wait 24 hours without showing any symptoms after that positive test, and by Wednesday morning you're back in school. I relay what I hear from stakeholders to you on the I Love CVille network. So prepare yourself for this topic, which I would expect is going to be even more of a lightning rod issue than masks in schools, which was the topic of conversation for Virginia over the last 60 days. One other topic that I want to get to you, and then the talented, distinguished, and well-versed Peter Krebs on the program. This intrigued me very much. I tried to relay to you topics that I find fascinating. Daniel Snyder is the owner of the now Washington Commanders. No longer the Washington football team, but now the Washington Commanders. Daniel Snyder, who is very much embattled in a sexual harassment ecosystem surrounding his organization, he very recently purchased the most expensive home in the Washington, D.C. area history, greater Washington history. Daniel Snyder, $48 million in cash, $48 million cash, purchased Riverview 799. This home is amazing, as you can imagine. 16.5 acre property, offers unspoiled Potomac River view frontage, 16,000 square foot main home, a separate carriage home. The main house has 7 bedrooms, 8 full baths, and several half baths across 4 levels, a library, game room, home office, gym with river views, spa with resistance pool, steam and sauna rooms, and a 15-seat home theater, 3-car attached garage with electric charging stations. I mean, it is the most expensive home in the greater DC area history at $48 million. The reason I relay this to you is I found that fascinating, and secondly, if this NFL franchise owner is purchasing or spending basically $50 million in cash out of his own pocket, that's an indication to me that this guy is not planning on selling this franchise anytime soon, despite the call to sell the Washington Commanders by many people, including some of his peers in the National Football League. All right, on that note, Judah Wickhauer, let's go to the two-shot, and let's welcome A-plus people, the community organizer for the Piedmont Environmental Council, Peter Krebs, to the program. Peter, good afternoon.
Hey, Jerry. Are you ready for spring?
I am so ready for spring. I'm so excited to have you on today's show. I have so many topics that I'm eager to ask and get your take on. First, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and what a way to begin as a Washington football fan. What you just said about the sale of the team, it makes me sad, but we'll move on from that.
We will move on for that. It also makes me sad as a fan of the Washington football team, but when someone spends $48 million to be right close to his organization, probably a sign that he has no plans of selling. Would you agree with that?
Maybe, and on a future show, you might want to talk about the cost of the home he's proposing for his football team. That's another topic.
That's a great topic for a future show. The first topic for Peter Krebs, though, will be the proposed payment in lieu of taxes, aka pilot program that Michael Payne is proposing or suggesting. So for the second, and Michael Payne sat where you were at a week ago today, so 7 days ago, and we talked about this pilot program. If you go to Michael Payne's personal Facebook page, you will see a very clear and succinct outline of what he's proposing. I'm going to read 3 paragraphs and then get your take on this. Here are the 3 paragraphs from Michael Payne's Facebook page. The University of Virginia owns 92 properties in the city of Charlottesville. In 2017, those properties had a total assessed value of $1 billion. Over $1 billion to be exact, $1.02 billion. If UVA paid the same tax rate as everyone else, that would generate $9.7 million in annual revenue for the city of Charlottesville. However, UVA is tax exempt. So what did UVA pay for their $1 billion plus portfolio of real estate to the city of Charlottesville? Just $398,416 in service charges and property maintenance charges. In other words, just 4% of their tax bill went to the city of Charlottesville. He concludes by saying this, and then we get Peter Krebs' take on the pilot payment in lieu of taxes program. UVA's annual budget is $1.9 billion. $1.9 billion its annual budget. In other words, paying $9.7 million in property taxes would take up 0.5% of UVA's budget, but it would increase Charlottesville's total budget by 5%. Peter Krebs, anywhere you want to go on this?
So I'm not a tax policy analyst. But as you might have gleaned from my earlier comment, I grew up in Washington, D.C., lived there my first 30 years. And there, too, there's been a real problem with nonprofits and other entities that don't pay taxes, and it's really hard for D.C. to pay its bills. So I've been sort of following this issue my whole life. And although I'm not in love with the idea that localities get the majority of their income through property taxes, the fact is that's the scenario that we have here in America. And in order to be philosophically consistent, the idea makes some sense that if you're a landowner, you derive lots of benefit, you benefit from the infrastructure. The infrastructure is built to accommodate your needs in a lot of ways. It makes sense for the largest landowner to actually participate in that generation of income. And I've also spoken separately about it being completely normal historically for major enterprises to participate in housing their workforce, in providing infrastructure to make the city go. That's how it's worked since Roman times. So this is not a radical idea. I think it's actually sort of it's correcting a sort of oversight in the way land is taxed here in Charlottesville.
Okay, so a couple things I want to unpack from your first take here on the show. Why are you not a huge fan of the primary source of revenue for a jurisdiction being associated with taxes on rooftops?
Yeah, because it automatically makes it more expensive to, for example, live than do business in a locality. It's not necessarily the case that being a resident costs the locality a lot of money. Yes, it can, but it's not a direct correlation.
A lot of comments coming in for you already. Christopher Miller, we'll get to your comment on Facebook. Michelle Kelly Rowan, we'll get to your comment on LinkedIn. This show is live and dynamic across every social media platform known to mankind. And if you want to participate in the discussion, leave your comments and questions in the feed, in the comment section, and I will relay them on air to Peter Krebs. Neil Williamson giving you some props right now, president of the Free Enterprise Forum. All right, let's talk about University of Virginia. So the reason why this pilot program is now becoming part of the vernacular or the news cycle is because of a number of reasons. The first reason, the city of Charlottesville is cash strapped with its fiscal 2023 year budget. And the reason it's cash strapped is because of this school reconfiguration project, as you know, that's on the horizon. $75 million for Buford, another $25 billion projected for Walker. Mm-hmm. So $100 million back of the napkin estimate. We both know how these projects work. They never come in low. Mm-hmm. They always come in high, and they always take longer than projected. So council, paying for the sins of its predecessors, has its backs against the wall and is currently advertising in the Daily Progress a 10-cent tax rate increase. The fear, and I don't want to speak for you, but I know you fairly well, and certainly some of your ideologies here, the fear with the 10-cent tax rate increase is it's going to further gentrify a community, especially when assessments in the city of Charlottesville uptick 12% year over year, inflation's trending at 7% year over year, and interest rates are going up. So this town ain't getting cheaper to live in, right? So Councilor Payne is trying to come up with incremental sources of tax revenue.
I'd add to that formulation, he's looking for diversified sources of revenue. And that's just how you run a business. And running a city is not the same as running a business, nor is it like running a household. But the basic,
what do you mean by that?
For example, a business could have shareholders that are trying to get value, whereas the city has stakeholders. They're not the same. But the basic principle applies in any economic relationship that diversified sources of revenue is a smart play.
Marco Sanchez, hello. Carol Thorpe, the Queen of Jack Jewett, hello. Scott Aaronworth, the King of Virginia Beach, watching the program in Virginia Beach. Johnny Ornalis, hello. Throw this to you. Are we both in agreement that the payment in lieu of taxes program, the pilot program that he's proposing, will have no impact on the 2023 fiscal year budget?
I would assume that's the case, but I don't know how such a deal would be written. I have to imagine that it would be virtually impossible to execute such an arrangement
in such a short time.
Yeah, in time for this next upcoming budget.
I agree with him. The budget kicks in fiscal year, like middle of the summer for that budget. What are we going to do? Do we think, what's your take? Is the school reconfiguration, Buford at $75 million, the right approach? Is the 10-cent real estate tax rate increase the right approach? I mean, these five folks who we both respect are in a sticky situation here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and I have as you may know, I have a senior at CHS So I've been following the reconfiguration ever since he was in kindergarten, right? We've been hearing about it through his whole career, and he's about to sort of graduate out of the system and still not have the reconfiguration even started. I'm glad to see that it's really picking up a lot of momentum. I think the reconfiguration is a good idea in general. I like that Charlottesville is laser focusing on the middle school years. If we're going to invest in something, I do think that middle school kids are a great return on investment. Whether this figure for the reconfiguration makes sense, I reserve judgment. What I will say, though, and this alludes to something else Michael has talked about before, is that the prospect of not being able to do anything capital-wise for the next 10 years.
10 years.
Except for the reconfiguration sounds like crazy. Like also in the budget work session, Lloyd talked about there are certain things the city must do, and then the rest is sort of a political decision, and smart people can disagree about that. But I am concerned about what would happen to transportation infrastructure, especially sidewalks, during those 10 years. We can't take a break from for 10 years from developing sidewalks and parks and other things we need. This is what got us into the situation we're in now. Like earlier generations saying, you know, we would love to have sidewalks, but we really need other things more. That happened to the schools, by the way, sort of 50 years. I'm sure of good people saying schools are very important, but we're going to take a little break on renovating them or building new ones or whatever. So I would like to see a really balanced approach with respect to infrastructure. It seems smart to have a balanced approach as to how we're going to pay for that infrastructure. And I don't envy those 5 folks.
Would you say, and I've said this, you may disagree, and if you disagree, you know, that's totally fine. In fact, I love the back and forth on
I'll show
shows
you
like
right
this.
down.
I know.
I disagree.
Peter Chris. I like you, Peter Chris. It seems to me that $75 million for one school is irresponsible allocation. And and this may be an unpopular opinion, and I've gotten some sting or some blowback from the community on this, but I've gotten a lot of people in the community that's saying, thank you for speaking up about it. $75 million for a project that's gonna keep the CIP frozen for a decade is nuts to me. $75 million for a school project, a reconfiguration project that could gentrify the city. So the project is trying to close the gap of educational equity that widened during COVID. But if we do a project like this, from my standpoint, it's going to gentrify the families and kids we're trying to serve out of the community, and the ones that are going to get to experience the reconfiguration years from now are going to be the ones that are have deep-pocketed parents that can survive the tax rate increases. Mm-hmm. And secondly, and then I'm going to get out of your way, freezing capital improvement projects for a decade terrifies me. The community's not going to stand for that. And when the community doesn't stand for that, that means we're going to have to do more tax rate increases in years to come to get new revenue to do other capital improvement projects.
Well, I think that that's a valid line of thinking. I'll agree with the part about how we can't freeze infrastructure for the next 10 years. I don't think that it's right to make a direct A to B thing saying this making the schools be better will lead to gentrification. Many things lead to gentrification, and the tax rate is one of them. I suppose one might imagine Charlottesville could become more attractive for new residents. That would be another form of gentrification, regardless of how we pay for the schools. But I hear this all the time, though, about how the community shouldn't pursue being a better place to live because it'll lead to gentrification, either because folks who are, I don't know, like used to having crappy infrastructure don't recognize their community anymore. Everybody deserves a great place to live. Our kids really deserve great schools. And as to the economic implications of improving the schools, I do think that's something we have to look at very carefully, but we have to look at many things very carefully when it comes to gentrification. And I think we might even talk about some of those when we talk about the comprehensive plan and other things. So I would love to have the reconfiguration go forward.
As it's currently planned?
In some kind of way, and I would like to see it be cheaper. I haven't studied the plans closely, so I can't say whether it's a good deal or not. What I will say is that the West Main project turned into the best possible West Main we could have.
He's talking West Main Streetscape project.
Correct, and then it just got more and more expensive, and it didn't start out with value engineering. It didn't start out with really being hard with the questions about cost benefit, and you need to do that up front. And I definitely don't want to see what happened with West Main happen to the school reconfiguration, where it turns into something we decide later that we can't afford. I do think that the people who are planning the reconfiguration are aware of that, and one thing that they're doing that's smart, that will keep that from happening, is not let it drag out. Construction is better when it's done swiftly, because time is money with construction, big time. But also, being swift with a big capital project means you also have to be very intentional and do all your homework and get it right. And how we're going to pay for the reconfiguration is a super important piece of homework that doesn't seem like it's completely thought all the way through.
And that's the revenue piece.
Yeah. So
the most important piece.
So you mentioned earlier, and I don't want to hijack your show and do the segue that you should be doing, but the sales tax for education construction is, I think, would be a true game changer.
You're talking about, okay, so we should give some background here. And I'm going to reference, Jim Hinchley is watching right now, Albemarle County Commonwealth's attorney. He routinely listens and watches the show and offers commentary. He has sent commentary. Jim, can you give me a heads up if I can offer your current commentary that you've texted me on the show? Please let me know, and I'm happy to do it. He has said this in the past. In fact, he said this on Friday. We would be having, this is Jim Hinchley, we'd be having a different conversation on school reconfiguration if the Republicans would allow Charlottesville to impose a 1% sales tax for school construction. This issue should be nonpartisan, but Republicans have made it partisan. He's on point with that. I'll add some background to this. Okay, thank you. He said I can offer some more perspective that he's texting now. Thank you, Jim. I'll add some background to this. Not only is it going to have to get through the General Assembly in Richmond, but then it would be up for a referendum in the city of Charlottesville.
Right.
So the first step is Richmond. The second step is, would voters in the city of Charlottesville vote yay or yes to this? Now the logical, and this is certainly an assumption, is they would vote yes because education is often a nonpartisan issue that bridges the aisle and bridges parties. So that's his point. And he also says this for Peter and for me: if the University of Virginia decides to make tax payments in lieu to Charlottesville, would it also make sense for the University of Virginia to include Albemarle County in the program as well? Albemarle County has capital needs too. Yes, he's exactly right. And that's the resistance I think we're going to get from the University of Virginia, because they know it's a Pandora's box That if they say, and I'm going to get out of your way, if they say yes to pay in Charlottesville, we certainly know the 6 Board of Supervisors in Albemarle County are going to say yes for us as well in Albemarle County.
And by the way, the actual grounds are Albemarle County.
They are.
Not Charlottesville.
Right, so Albemarle County, you could say, would get the lion's share of the money, not City of Charlottesville, right?
I cannot
But
back
smart
that. I
people-
don't know, you know.
Yeah, eye test.
It depends on where the real estate holdings are and what their value is, and I just don't know.
What do you make of the text right there from Councilor Hingley?
So 2 pieces of that. That's right to the diversification of revenue sources piece that I mentioned. And it's also to the philosophical piece that I started with, right? Like, you could tax land ownership, or you could philosophically tax economic activity. Why not diversify that? And also, I think in other states around the US and other parts of the world, economic activity is how you pay for infrastructure. And it's, it's annoying that in Virginia it's very difficult to do that. First of all, because it makes it hard to run a city. But also on this Dillon rule piece, this thing about the locality having to actually
Answer to Richmond.
come to some consensus locally and then say Mother May I to Richmond and then validate it with a vote. I think localities should be able to choose their own destiny.
Oh, just gave you some props on that. That's our clap, our very dynamic and scientific and innovative clap box right there. Dude, I 100% agree with you on that. The Dillon rule is the most archaic governmental setup I can think of, when really we're not in control of so much.
And in my work to promote walkability, access to fresh air, the business community is right out front waving the flag with this. I think they would be supportive of such a idea that having a penny or whatever of sales tax going toward making this a better place to live seems like a no-brainer.
I really agree with you on paper about that. I really do. So let's dot the I's and cross the T's on this, and then we'll segue to the next topic that I think is really going to get people talking, and that's the comp plan. Future land use map, upzoning. Let's cut to the chase. It's upzoning. And Neil Williamson, we'll get to your comment here for Peter Krebs here in a matter of moments on the Dillon rule. If you are in the shoes of council, it's a good topic for the sake of a talk show, and you're contemplating the 10-cent tax rate increase, which is a substantial increase, and it's in particularly compounded by the 12% assessment increase year over year in the city, and inflation. I mean, the gas pump, so expensive to pump gas in our cars right now. Pack of bacon, a gallon of milk, 7% plus trending, and interest rates going up. Do you go forward with the tax rate increase? Do you change the mindset of reconfiguration, perhaps to remodeling instead of reconfiguration, which could make it in the neighborhood of 20, 25 million, saving potentially 50 off the rip, which is substantial on a $190 million budget. Saving 50 million bucks is a hell of a lot. We're talking 25+% there. Or do you say, look, we got to feel the burn right now, because the proverbial can's been kicked down the road from council to council to council on this reconfiguration project. We got to raise the tax rate now, and we got to do it, frankly, for the next few years if we're going to ever do anything from a capital improvement standpoint. What do you do?
Fortunately, I'm not on city council, so I'm not honestly sure, what they ought to do. Speaking about my own household, I think for my own household perspective, it's a good investment. Having the schools be great actually helps me as a property owner. It helps me as a parent, and although it won't be my child going through the schools, it's a pay it forward thing. Like other people have been paying forward to get my kid through school, it's normal that I should do the same. There are concerns about affordability that, how do we look out for especially people on fixed income for whom their property tax might be one of their biggest bills.
10th and Page neighborhood, historically black neighborhood in the heart of the city of Charlottesville. In that particular corridor of the city, 25% increase in assessments year over year.
So also I think it's a near certainty that landlords will pass that cost on. On the other hand, cities are typically a little bit pricier to live in than rural countryside or even suburban localities. And so I think the key really is making sure that folks are getting value back for what they're paying. I think it could be okay to have people be taxed more and get other quality of life improvements or have it be cheaper to live in other ways. So for example, owning a car is 10 grand a year. And so that's almost $1,000 a month, like right on top of people's rent. If we could make it so you didn't have to add that car, we could actually have the rent check be a little bit higher and still have it be cheaper to live here.
Well, okay.
So you gotta deliver value if you're taxing.
So basically what he's saying in a nutshell, and I don't want to assume, so that's what I'm trying to nutshell it. If we make the transportation system more robust, ubiquitous, consistent, and approachable, the need for a car diminishes. And if the need for the car diminishes, more disposable income stays in the pocket of citizens and less wear and tear happens on infrastructure, which means taxpayer dollars are being shifted from infrastructure upkeep to educational improvement.
Sort of. I think I'm talking about it in more of a pocketbook way, that a person can afford to pay a little bit more for their rent if they can afford to pay a lot less for their transportation.
Okay, and I'm in agreement with you. I'll play devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show. Devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show. I think us having this, and you and I are both so pro-transportation. In fact, I've said so many times on this show, it's about time we have one transportation system for the entire region.
Right.
The Central Virginia Transportation System, we can call it. And all the elements of transportation in Central Virginia across jurisdictional boundaries can be branded or archived under one umbrella, the Central Virginia Transportation System, CAT, right. Jaunt, hell, I would even throw UTS in there. I throw school buses in there, public school transportation, and just put it in one. And then all these jurisdictions get the economies of scale and the vertically integrated nature of the same back-end office as opposed to splintered back-end offices. They don't have to negotiate against each other for drivers like they're happening right now.
Right.
They can have more purchasing power when purchasing electric buses as opposed to doing it individually or just a few at a time. They could do one for an entire region. I mean, I know you're hugely in favor of this, but that path of pursuit is a long way away. And the path of pursuit of payment in lieu of taxes for UVA is not this year.
Right.
So these 5 people in the dais, and you're right, it's a tough spot to be in, they have decisions of what they're going to do between today and early March when that 30-day period for the 10-cent tax rate increase has expired and they have to make the decision on that Monday in March, early March on council. So what's the real-time decision-making here?
Yeah, I don't know what we're going to find out. There's going to be a public hearing that they'll have a chance to hear from their citizens, and I might even reach out to them as a citizen myself. I don't want to sit here with a microphone and tell them what they ought to do.
Sure, okay, that's fair. And I agree with your statement about improved education drives home values. And a perfect example of that is Crozet. Crozet boomed because of the fantastic performing nature of Western Albemarle High School, Henley, Meriwether, etc. We know that. And if we improve schools, Beaufort and Walker, the homes that traffic or matriculate their kids through Walker and Beaufort, their values will uptick. The only problem is it's going to be 6 years for Beaufort, 10 for Walker before it comes a reality. And my fear is it just creates a homogenous and super wealthy community in those years.
So I think that's a really important thing to never lose sight of. I do want to always be reminding the community that when we talk about home values, there are two pieces of that. There's like the market price, like the value in terms of how much you could convert that asset into for cash should you choose to sell it. And then there's a home value as in, like, this is a great place to live, this is a nice resource to hold on to. And it's very possible for those two things to get separated, where you could have the price go up without the value of it as something that's worth holding on to also increasing. I've lived in places where the rents skyrocket without it being a better place to live. And I don't want to see that. And there is a bit of paying it forward that's happening. And so, again, like, as a homeowner, I don't know that I probably will, but I don't know if I'll still be here when the reconfiguration is still done. And it still could make sense for me. After all, I got, one of the reasons I came here is because we had a really solid drinking water plan. So, you know, I think being on a path where we know what we're going to do, we have a plausible likelihood that the school is going to get better already starts to deliver value, even if it's not in place, even if you don't have a kid that's about
true.
To go to that school.
That's true.
Yeah.
He's saying the momentum behind the project will drive value, even though the tangible structure has not been constructed.
That's correct. And
that's true, what he's saying.
I think with the reconfiguration project, that plays out in both spaces. That plays out in the home price space, but it really also, and this is what I emphasize, plays out on the better community.
Quality of life.
Like, we have to be a community that cares a lot about our middle schoolers. Yeah.
I love this guy.
Yeah.
Peter Krebs dropping knowledge today on the program. We'll get to viewers and listeners' comments, and then we'll head to the comp plan. Neil Williamson, president of the Free Enterprise Forum, for you. Here's his comment verbatim. The National League of Cities identifies 31 Dillon's Rule states, 10 Home Rule states, 8 states that apply Dillon's Rule only to certain municipalities, and 1 state, Florida, that applies Home Rule to everything except taxation. Each state defines for itself what powers it will grant to local governments. Mm-hmm. Neil's a smart guy.
Yep.
Love the Free Enterprise Forum as well. He has a question also directly for you. And I think you've identified this already, but give it to him in a nutshell. And then I'm going to get to Jim Hingley's comment, and you're getting props on social from Alexandra Thompson.
Alex. Hey, Alex.
Says, keep up the good work. Where's she watching?
I believe she's in Seattle.
I believe we got the West Coast in the mix. Mm-hmm. How do the increased taxes impact quality of life specifically, Peter? Neil Williamson. You've touched on it.
Mm-hmm. So, actually, I think the revenue directly, it doesn't affect the quality of life. What it could do is pay for infrastructure that makes this a better place to live. Schools being within the American system, probably the biggest thing that we spend money on is cities. You know, also, sidewalks, buses, water infrastructure, all the sort of municipal shared, owned responsibilities by the city. Also, it's not just about infrastructure, it's about quality of service. You know, is City Hall well-staffed? You know, that has revenue implications also.
Michelle Kelly Rowan, watching on LinkedIn. We're streaming this show on every social media platform known to mankind. Facebook, 15 pages, 15 on Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, iTunes, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. So Michelle Kelly Rowan, the success of Western Albemarle is not tied to the facility. It is tied to the commitment of the staff and the families. Jacking up taxes will not change that in the city. So she takes a respectful disagreement stance there, which makes the show dynamic. Go ahead.
Although she did underline the point that I made, that it's not only about infrastructure, it's also about operations. And let's be real, a big piece of operations is actually people, teachers in classrooms.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point. And I will also agree with the point that he made that if the school reconfiguration project is approved, while I'm terribly fearful of gentrification and the impacts it's going to have, that project is going to make the school system better, and improved school systems, high-performing school systems, undoubtedly drive real estate value.
And we know schools are where the ladder of opportunity is. It's very difficult to better oneself, to have a better destiny than our parents had if the schools aren't first rate.
And that's literally all my wife and I want for our son, is offering our son an opportunity, an even better opportunity than my wife and I had. Right. Jim Hingley, via text message, the 1% tax has a second chance. SB 298, same as Sally Hudson's House bill, passed the Senate 28-12. This number includes 7 Republican votes. Here's the rub, however. The Senate bill has crossed over to the House, where the 5 Republicans in the subcommittee can kill it. If the community wants a chance to tax itself for school reconfiguration, citizens must do their advocacy in the General Assembly right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so Jim is one of the smartest guys in town.
He is.
If he can help steer people as to how to do that advocacy, it would be helpful.
Anytime you want to come on the program, we can talk about that, Mr. Hingley. We can also talk about, in fact, I will get to that in a matter of moments, what you guys have cooking here in a matter of moments. Let's get to more comments, though. Okay, so here's one from Kimberly, who's watching in Belmont. If we spend this money to reconfigure the schools, my taxes on my home will increase 27%. She's including the assessment and the tax rate. She says, I won't be able to afford to continue living in this community. We have elementary age students. Both my husband and I work, but this town is getting more expensive than we can afford. We will sell our home and we will move to a county that is more affordable for us. And someone will certainly pay us top dollar for our house because it's in a desirable neighborhood. However, we don't want to move, but there's only so many dollars we have in our paychecks. That's a real life.
Yeah, I mean, that's real testimony. It's not me that's voting, so.
Right. We're just talking about it.
Yeah, so, yeah, truth, that's totally true. And, yeah, so Kimber's a local leader, and I hope she communicates her views to City Council.
I mean, this is a massive situation we have here. Also, I want to remind the public, everyone that watches this program is invited February 17th at 7 p.m. Charlottesville Circuit Court Judicial Candidate Public Forum, February 17th at 7 p.m. I will send this Zoom link for public engagement, including the password for the Zoom link, out to all viewers and listeners. The Charlottesville Albemarle Bar Association Judicial Endorsements Committee invites the public to attend a public forum at Charlottesville City Space at 7 p.m. on Thursday, February 17th. So you can do it in person or via Zoom. Candidates for appointment to an upcoming vacancy on the Charlottesville Circuit Court bench will speak at the forum and answer questions. These candidates are Nina Alice Antony, Andre Hakes, and Arashini Pather. I'm sorry if I'm messing any of those names up. The public may attend remotely by using the link that we will share in the feed. So Judah, I'll pass that link around for you. Let's go comp plan. First, broad strokes of comp plan. Educate the viewership and the audience of what's happening, and then I'll pick apart some important topics.
Right.
I think a lot of people still don't know what's happening here.
Okay, so I don't have information that is not already being communicated by the city. So Charlottesville passed its comprehensive plan update at the end of last year. The next step is to rewrite the zoning code, and hopefully we'll have very close correlation between what the comp plan says and what the zoning regulations say. Then we can have certainty. It's easier for for builders to be able to know what's going to be allowed, and also easier for residents to understand what's coming in their community, because it'll be written out. And that zoning code will be rewritten through democratic means. So I believe what's happening now is that city staff is taking a look at the existing zoning code. I believe they're also going to really take it apart and produce a whole new zoning code. It's not going to be like a marked up version of the one we have. And then they'll issue some kind of report about that in the spring. There'll be a decision about how to proceed, and then the code rewrite will take place like in the spring, summer, fall, winter, something like that.
So I'm gonna cliff notes it even more. That was a good description of what's going on. And Neil Williamson, I know, is going to want to jump in here. More density is on the near horizon for the city of Charlottesville. Upzoning is the right description. And the idea is we are a 10.2 square mile city, and we have limited housing supply. So if we upzone the city, basically allow a single family detached home to evolve over time into a duplex, triplex, quadplex, then that additional density will help stabilize pricing in an area that is coveted to live within. So if you increase supply and demand remains the same, pricing should go down. That's the thinking. That's
the thinking. And then another piece of my thinking is it concentrates settlement in the city and in urban areas where the infrastructure exists.
So why he's emphasizing that is because he's a very, like we all are, well, most of us are, some to different levels than others, but he's very pro-environment. So he's talking about concentrated density and the positive impacts it will have on the environment, from pollution from vehicles driving all over the place, buses. He's also talking about the concentrated density and how it could be utilized or leveraged for public transportation. Because if you have more density, a good example of this would be Manhattan, you're going to prioritize public transportation even more, because you're going to want to get vehicles off the road. Because if you have too many vehicles on the road, it's going to cause congestion,
right,
infrastructure wear and tear, and pollution, and health hazards like accidents and impacts on people.
Right, and also this is one that I've been on a lot lately, is simply time. Having people spending time in their communities, spending time with their families, doing things that they want to do, rather than sitting in some beltway or, some traffic congested freeway. Also, I think it's really important. Although it's I heart Seaville, it's also I iHeart Albemarle, right?
It's iHeart Central Virginia.
Yeah, and
Seville is Central Virginia in a lot of ways.
right. Yeah. So Albemarle County is starting its comprehensive plan right now, and similar conversation happening there. And certainly, from where I sit, focusing future growth in areas where there's already designated for growth, already good infrastructure, already plans for improved infrastructure, and leaving the rural areas for natural systems, farms, forests, and other things that make it possible to have an ecosystem.
Okay, I'm going to play, and I love when Peter Krebs comes on the show. We got to have you on the show more, dude. This guy is a super smart dude. I'm going to play devil's advocate again for the sake of a talk show. And I want to take City of Charlottesville only for upzoning and increased density. Again, the thinking is if you upzone, you add more rooftops, and if you add more rooftops, it should stabilize pricing, and we all know it's getting crazy, the prices in the City of Charlottesville. By my count, and I don't even have the full list, and I'm looking at them now because we compiled them on I Love Seville. There's 11 HOA neighborhoods in the City of Charlottesville. There's Huntley, the front part of Willoughby, Cherry Hill, Village Place, a portion of Lachlan Hill, Sunrise Park, Brookwood, 5th and Harris, Longwood Drive, Melbourne Park, and Paynes Mill. These 11 neighborhoods, and there's more than these 11, that's just that I could put together. Their HOA bylaws supersede zoning changes and upzoning changes. So my fear is that these 11 neighborhoods, they're going to say no. Their bylaws say no. They don't even have to say no. Their bylaws say no to zoning changes. So these upzoning strategies are going to impact portions of the city that are not HOA'd, and those portions of the city are going to gentrify real fast because it's only 10.2 square miles. Deep-pocketed investors are going to buy the housing stock existing in those portions and profit off those purchases by taking a single-family detached and creating a duplex, triplex, quadplex, or apartment situation and collecting the rents off them. So I think, and I fear, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, so I'm curious of your take, that the upzoning, because of the HOA neighborhoods, and because of the influence of deep-pocketed developers in this area, and we've seen it everywhere, it's not going to have the outcome that's being discussed today.
Right. Well, certainly zoning is just one of many tools. And we see movement in the real estate market driven by many factors, not necessarily, like I would imagine, I haven't done the math, but interest rates would have a lot more to say about what gets built and what doesn't get built than what zoning does.
That's true.
And interest rates are just one thing. Cost of lumber, there are many factors. But the fact also sits there that we can't have certain kind of communities if we don't have the sufficient zoning in place to make it happen. So, revising the zoning is certainly no panacea, but I don't think we can get where we need to be without there being some changes. You see the distinction, like it's not going to fix stuff, but we're really stuck if we don't change it.
Gwendolyn Gale Cassidy, watching in Holland. Harvard University's Gwendolyn Gale Cassidy. I've applied to be on the working group for the comp plan, and I was wondering how can I best educate myself? Can you please provide online resources I can read to be able to make the best decisions for those of us living in a marginalized community if I am selected?
So I'm imagining she's talking about the Albemarle County Comprehensive Plan.
I think she's talking both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and she's writing from Holland?
She's in Holland. She's abroad right now. So she's watching in Holland. Right now in Holland, is it, what time is it, Gwendolyn? Is it 8:30? Let us know what time it is. She has ties to Charlottesville.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go to UVA as well? I believe she went to UVA as well. She's come on this program before.
Right.
and now she's abroad in Holland. Let us know what time it is there.
Yeah, and so there's a short URL for the Albemarle County Comprehensive Plan. I wish I had it memorized. We'll have to put it in the chat or something for later.
And she wants to correct something I said that you were right on. Yes, it's for Albemarle County.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Albemarle County, just like I want to say last week, launched a website about their comprehensive plan. If I were the super smart guy you said I was, I would have memorized that, but we'll have to put it in the chat. Or if one of the other viewers, probably who is super smart, could just drop it in there, it would save us the trouble.
Okay, how about this? Gwendolyn Gail Cassidy, who's watching now in Holland, I hope you have a cocktail in your hand. Let us know what time it is. Neil Williamson, do you have... Neil Williamson dropped it in the chat. He dropped it in the chat.
All right.
Freaking love this community so much, Peter.
I don't think that means Neil's smarter than I am, just for the record. Sorry, Neil. I do respect you, but it doesn't mean you're smarter than me.
I'm gonna take the link that he dropped, Gwendolyn, in the chat on my personal Facebook page, and I'm gonna put it over on the I Love CVille group Facebook page so you can get this.
This is a top 5 issue for the community. I'm glad you're doing that.
Yeah, okay, keep going. The show is yours. We got long form. We'll go longer than an hour because you're dropping serious knowledge here. Keep talking comp plan and what else you're concerned about here.
Yeah, so not super much more to report on where we are. Stay tuned on the Albemarle County Comp Plan. I think it's really going to get rolling in the next couple of weeks. They're trying to get, and not just trying, but actually going into communities and doing pop-ups. So go to that website that Neil posted the link for. Get yourself educated and participate. And then I just want to close with one other thing about the rezoning. So the rezoning is partly about getting those rooftops in the way that we want it to. But it's also about defining what we mean by having a dense community that's a great place to live. We have to work on both of those two things at the same time.
Neil says, Peter is clearly smarter than me.
Okay, so I'm not going to disagree. Like, what can I say? Neil is a smart guy. If that's what he says, it's probably right.
Oh gosh, I love this show so much. I love this community so much. Comments, put them in the feed. Gwendolyn says, thank you, Neil, for that link. So I want to throw Biscuit Run Park to you. A lot of folks and this guy knows Biscuit Run better than just about anybody in this community. I've said many times on this program, you know this, making a push for Board of Supervisors next year. Part of the platform is Biscuit Run Park. Here's the guy to talk to about Biscuit Run Park.
Yeah.
Show is yours.
Well, so I think the hope is that Biscuit Run Park will open this coming fall. So it has momentum. Actually, I think the Board of Supervisors has been great with respect to Biscuit Run. So getting this first phase funded, that is in place. Work is getting started. And also in this next budget, there I think is going to be tranches of funds for future phases, getting it open, getting the master plan built out, and also having it be connected with the surrounding communities. That means this trail that we've been talking about from the Wegmans down to the park, which is a trail that will also be useful for residents of the surrounding neighborhoods to get to either the park or the grocery store or the city. We're also, though, talking about having it be well connected to Southwood and Hickory Street and Points West, especially Southwood. Folks here, I mean, if they've talked to me at all, they know that if a kid should see a park, if a kid can see a park from where they live, it needs to be easy for them to get into that park. This is something I'm super passionate about and pretty uncompromising about. So, this is not news to county staff. They know this and they're actively working on it. What I don't know, and this would be a good question to raise with county staff, is are we on track for having the park actually open this fall?
That's the questions that are coming in here.
Or is it going to be pushed back? And what I've heard is that's a question of the county having the permission from VDOT to have a turn off of Route 20 close to Avon Street. And that isn't something that I or even the Board of Supervisors can control. It's
at the mercy of VDOT.
Right. They can't exactly call up VDOT and say, hey, make this thing happen. But we don't want to see this park, which is about walking and biking and having fresh air and looking at turtles and all that stuff, being held sort of hostage to a technicality about how you're going to drive to get there. I think they're smart people working on it, and I hope they get it sorted out.
All right, so comments coming in at Biscuit Run Park here. Action plan for Biscuit Run Park. This is from Steven, who is on Twitter. Jerry, your show and your efforts have kept Biscuit Run Park on the mind for so many in this community. Please keep doing this effort. Please also ask your guests, you've touched on this already, Peter, the likelihood of my family going to Biscuit Run Park, paying a fee to use the park, me having the ability to mountain bike around the park, our kids being able to play on the playground or the pond or the lake in the park, and us enjoying this. We are 9 minutes from this park off Old Lynchburg Road. I don't even think it's at 9 minutes.
So,
I guess it depends on where on Old Lynchburg Road.
So I think all that stuff is on the horizon, except for the piece about paying a fee. I don't think you'll have to pay a fee because it's a county park.
But we pay county fee. We pay fees at Walnut Creek. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't we pay a fee there?
Do we pay a fee at Darden Towel Park?
That's a good counter.
This park is more like Darden Towel than it is like Walnut Creek. And if we didn't have the, I don't think you pay a fee to get into Chris Green Park. You pay a fee to get into their little beach area. So if if Biscuit Run were to have some kind of amenity that incurs fees, like I don't know, like a super high-tech sandbox or something like that.
Or boating.
Boating, yeah. You would pay for that. But I don't think, I mean, in fact, what I just said is, folks in Southwood, a kid should be able to stumble out their back door and be right in the park. So
you don't think, and I'm sake of a talk show here, you don't think this park should be monetized?
No, definitely not.
You don't. Okay, counterpoint.
Well, there are different ways to monetize a park. So I don't think you should have to pay to get in there. The kids that need it most are the ones that don't have money to pay. Should you be able to buy a hot dog there? Maybe, and that would be monetized.
Okay, so that was one of the ways I was going down. So
Yeah.
how about a private-public partnership with and I've said this in the past, a red light in Corin, and having a little portion of the park be for live music, and the Albemarle County version of Fridays After 5, where Fridays 26 times a year, there's a big name act, maybe not big name, but an act that we know that plays, improving quality of life. Vendors are around, being able to do food truck stuff, beverage stuff, and revenue incremental for the county for its jurisdiction.
Well, I would like that idea even more if it were a celebration of the outdoors with the music and the food and stuff as incidentals. So, for example, having I don't know, like a scavenger hunt on the lawn, or having a bike festival.
Yeah,
so
those are great ideas.
Those would have a permit that is a fee attached to it.
But we got to figure out a way. You've put this in perspective in previous shows. Biscuit Run Park, if you combine other parks in the area, put it in comparison from a size standpoint.
Right. It's like it'll already be one of the largest parks, if not the largest. A couple of the ones that we're familiar with could fit inside Biscuit Run. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it might be something like Chris Green plus Dart and Towel plus Walnut Creek or something might all fit in there. I should know the numbers, but again, smart people. Maybe Neil can.
Oh, I'll do a quick Google search here,
us.
and the only reason I'm able to rattle these off is because I'm doing a quick Google search here. Biscuit Run Park is 1,200 acres.
Right.
In Albemarle County's urban ring, so we should remember that number. 1,200 for Biscuit Run Park. Walnut Creek Park, Albemarle County. Let's see the size of that one. Walnut Creek Park is 525 acres.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like
So 2 Walnut Creeks,
yes.
and then you still have buffer.
Right.
That shows you the size of this park.
Yeah, and so one of the implications of that is that there are going to be parts of the park that are have lots of people, and there will also be parts of the park where it's mostly left alone.
Yeah, which is awesome.
You can go have solitude if you want that.
Which is one of my favorite aspects of Walnut Creek.
Mm-hmm.
Like the cool thing about Walnut Creek is my wife and our son. My wife and our son, they can go to Walnut Creek, and then they can go to the playground, or they can go on that little not boardwalk area, but that little bridge area over the lake. You know what I'm talking about? That little
Yeah.
What would you call that? Like a lookout point
Yeah.
over the lake. You know what I'm saying? So they hang out there. He's looking at the fish, and then I can go take like a hot lap, 50 minutes of mountain biking, and come back there. So I get a little time away,
Yeah.
mountain biking through the woods. Don't see any people, and then you get back to the lake area, and there's not a ton of people, but there's people there.
Right, and so one of the things that I really like about the vision of Biscuit Run, and this is something that the Board of Supervisors is always thinking about, is that a lot of our parks are very crowded because there's just not enough inventory of places to walk or ride a bike. So Biscuit Run is being very intentionally built so it absorbs a lot of that pressure from other places. We'll talk in a bit about the Rivanna River pedestrian bridge. A lot of talk about Riverview Park and how many people go there. And the reason why is because there are not a lot of places where a mom could take her kid with training wheels. So part of the implementation of Biscuit Run is being done in such a way that it provides a new place for people to go. And in fact, this one park, as you alluded to just now, in itself will have many different places to go do those things.
Comments coming in on this topic. So the Queen of Jack Jewett, Carol Thorpe, watching the program. She says, Jerry, your instincts are correct. Keep plugging for other avenues of revenue besides taxation to fund things like parks. Neil, I think this is a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, also known as sarcasm. What could be better than 1,200 acres of park land within Albemarle's restrictive development area? Neil is very pro development and housing right there, which, I certainly respect where he comes from on many topics. In fact, most topics from Neil Williamson there.
I don't disagree with Neil on that.
Yeah, 5% of Albemarle County, 5% of all of Albemarle County is allocated to residential and commercial development. And of that 5%, not all of it is developable because of the terrain nature of the 5%.
Right.
So he is essentially, a lobbyist, lobbying stakeholders to expand that 5%. We had Diantha McKeel on set about a month ago, Supervisor McKeel, and she said, and I'm paraphrasing, but paraphrasing accurately, we cannot expand the 5% until the 5% is actually utilized in totality.
Right.
And then she rattled off Albemarle Square and Seminole Square Shopping Center, Fashion Square Mall as being ghost towns.
So I agree with Diantha on that, and also with Biscuit Run. It was just essential that we have a place that's where people already live, where they can play. We can't have people having to drive out to Walnut Creek to be among trees. That that doesn't meet the second half of the test that I listed, where there be places to live that are great places to live. Biscuit Run is essential for this to be a great community.
Would we ever see, so another aspect of my campaign is the sports tourism piece. Could any aspect of that 1,200 acre park be utilized for sports fields to drive tourism associated with sports to the region?
Well, so the master plan includes some sports fields, but thinking actually a little bit aggressively about your idea is that even when Biscuit Run was going to be a state park, I think the idea would be to have mountain biking events in Biscuit Run that drive tourism. That people come from all over the state to ride in Biscuit Run, and actually Biscuit Run is quite close to 64. So folks
it's a no-brainer.
Can make a day of it to come play in Albemarle County.
And the best kind of tax revenue generator is taxes associated with people that don't live in the area.
So,
taxes that are associated with people that aren't utilizing our schools, aren't staying long-term to utilize our roads or to pollute our environment or our infrastructure wear and tear, come here with the mindset of spending money and then leaving. We love those people.
Then thinking about land use and monetizing the park, we're not going to charge an entry fee because that would be unjust to do it, but it would be nice if people have a way to, pay for that cup of coffee, to buy the pizza for the soccer team, and all of that stuff.
Okay, so he's influencing my mindset here, and that's one of his skills.
They could buy that pizza at Mill Creek. It doesn't have to be inside Biscuit Run.
Okay, he's Okay, well, that's fair. He is influencing my mindset, and maybe the gatekeeper fee would be stepping over dollars to pick up nickels. And perhaps the way to monetize the park is other sources of revenue like food vendors or like amenity-rich aspects of the park that have fees, like boating, etc.
So
or like concert venue.
Like the park it's like fertilizer that makes the community grow, and you don't need to have the park be a direct generator of revenue, because the people that are more hungry because they're getting more fresh air are buying more pizzas, and that's driving sales tax, and again, like another argument for being able to capture a little bit of that sales tax revenue for quality of life. So yeah, it's about making a great community.
Gwendolyn, the Ivy Creek Natural Area is a 219-acre natural area jointly owned by the County of Albemarle and the City of Charlottesville. This is the least populated park in my experience, but no fur babies. She's offering that perspective on parks. I'm so pumped to hear tangible action with Biscuit Run Park. And we have our fingers crossed, and we wait with hope, and we wait with exhausted patience that something happens this fall.
Well, and we got to pull every lever that we can, whether maybe it is possible for the board to say, hey, VDOT, we need you to
put a little pressure.
ASAP this thing.
Dude, what's the likelihood of you think that happening?
I'm not sure what's behind the scenes, but something like 50-50.
How about
but in the short cycle, like whether we're talking about September or we're talking about March, something in that range, I would say it's like 80%. We're going to have this park soon.
This is a good comment. Charge out-of-town guests, but not locals that can prove local residency.
So we do that with amenities. I think it's hard to do that with a stepping foot on public land, particularly something like Biscuit Run being well integrated with the surrounding community would have many entrances. If we funnel everybody through one gate, it's less accessible. That kid that lives in Southwood isn't going to go there if they have to find their way around to Route 20. That's you know how it is to drive around here. It would take half an hour to get from.
Well, and that kid in Southwood may or may not have a car.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. That's a good point. Don Whitaker giving you some props on the feed.
But if there's a carousel, maybe pay a nickel to get on the carousel. That's reasonable.
That's reasonable. Johnny Ornalis, hello, owner of Guadalajara and El Mariachi. All right, so I love when you come on the show. Let's talk Ravenna River Pedestrian Bridge.
Oh man, this is such an exciting project. So one of the sort of philosophical points we've been pushing with the city and county for the last, as long as I've been doing this job, is to work together.
And should we get a link from him?
Yeah, so
Judah Wickhauer is our director.
So the city and county are working with the Metropolitan Planning Organization to seek VDOT funding for a pedestrian bridge that you can also ride a bike on across the Ravenna River between the Woolen Mills neighborhood and the Pantops neighborhood in Charlottesville and Albemarle. There's been a lot of research, a lot of technical studies have been done, and we've narrowed it down to two possible ways to do that. One would start in Riverview Park at the foot of Chesapeake Street and cross over to the Albemarle side, Pantops, and have a shared use path going up to...
Is that on screen, Judah?
Yeah, that
it's on screen.
That's not the option that I'm talking about.
Okay.
Then the second option would be similar. It would start at the wool factory and cross over to Pantops. Thank you. That's the map. So this map shows two red dotted lines. One is in Riverview Park, crossing over to Pantops, and the other red dotted line is from the wool factory. And these are both two great options. They're both feasible. I am very confident that VDOT will be willing to fund either option. The MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, is collecting community input on which of those two options we ought to pursue as a community. I've written a blog post about it that really breaks down all the history, the background, the pluses and minuses of both locations, including the cost. This blog post also has pretty cool 360 views of what it would look like to be on either of those two bridge options. And it also links to a survey that the planning district is doing. So there are going to be links to the blog post and to the survey in the chat. The MPO is also hosting a public meeting about this bridge project next Tuesday, and that's going to be on Zoom. And we'll also drop information about the public meeting. I believe it's at 6 o'clock on Tuesday.
Okay, so what I'm doing now, and Peter, the show continues to be yours here, and we're going to get to these many comments on LinkedIn. I'm going to take the link from PEC, Piedmont Environmental Council website, on the Ravenna River Pedestrian Bridge, and I'm going to post it in the comments section of 15 Facebook pages, set it to 15 Twitter accounts, put it on LinkedIn, YouTube, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere. So please, as I do this, offer more insight, and many folks want to know what is the best path and how does this improve quality of life in the area.
Oh my gosh, this project is so great because, first of all, it solves a major transportation problem. Like, how do you get from Charlottesville over to Sentara Martha Jefferson Hospital? How do you get to the State Farm site, which is about to be majorly redeveloped? I know my neighborhood doctor, maybe Doc Gelbard's watching, he once had to wade across the Rivanna River to go deliver a baby up at the Martha Jefferson Hospital. This would solve that problem. A lot of people work at Martha Jefferson and other parts in Pantops and live in Charlottesville. They'd be able to make that connection easily. Lots of people live in Pantops who work in Charlottesville or at the wool factory, or would like to simply come over to Charlottesville and have a beer. This provides a new connection to Riverview Park, so it won't just have that one little parking lot. The bridge also will open up a massive planned trail on the Albemarle County side, the Old Mills Trail, which will go from Dardantel Park. It already starts at Dardantel and will go all the way to the Clifton Inn. So that'll be an 8-mile riverside, natureful, awesome trail along the Rivanna River. One of the things that's exciting about this project, and the reason why we feel confident that it'll succeed, is we also know that there's a lot of economic development activity happening right in that zone. I mentioned the State Farm site, the wool factory. Also, it's right close to Broadway, where Albemarle County has future economic development in mind. So those two factors, the transportation benefit and also the economic development benefit, to say nothing about the recreation benefit and connecting people at the river, make this a real home run project. And so the MPO is, I think, looking to wrap up the community process certainly by the end of March and get a pre-application into VDOT around April 1st.
I shared the blog post across social. It's on Twitter, it's on Facebook. We'll put it on LinkedIn here in a matter of moments, and then in post-production. Judah, why don't we do this? For the package that we archive on iloveseville.com that archives this interview and the interview with Peter, let's include all these links as well as trackback links for the content so people can see them. And if we just copy and paste what he sent to you into the package, that'll be nice and succinct. I think the next piece we should highlight, Peter Krabs, would be the Active Mobility Summit.
Oh my gosh, so...
I like when you get passionate, Peter. I like it.
I'm always passionate.
I know you are.
So on February 28th, activists who are interested in walking, biking, mobility representatives from different organizations are going to come together for a virtual summit. It'll be a half-day Zoom-based summit that starts at 10 a.m. and will wrap up at 3 p.m. with a long break in the middle. And they're going to come together to talk about projects that we can all work together on that can succeed if we do collaborate, that would be a real challenge for any single group to pull off. So one example is in last year's summit, Community Bikes pitched an idea of having a mobile bike clinic. So they could take their bike shop to communities rather than having people having to go to their shop. They got together with the city, the mountain bikers, their own organization, and did this collaborative project, and now they have a mobile clinic, a mobile repair truck. One of the ideas being pitched this year is having a bicycle race that would be a professional race, it would be a collegiate race. It would have a community bike parade right here in the heart of Charlottesville. I'm not going to steal their thunder.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's going to be one of the topics. Another topic that I'm sure will be talked about is, given that the West Main Streetscape project didn't work out, what are some quicker, cheaper things that we can do right away, like whether it means like putting planters to create temporary bike lanes or repainting the road to make West Main a safer place to be. Like an average citizen can't do that by themselves, but by forming a coalition, we'll be able to get something done. So,
can you give us a hint on the race?
Yeah, so the Charlottesville Racing Club is organizing a race in April. It's going to be so awesome. I'm not sure if it has been officially green lighted at this point, but it would be like a short course race. I don't know the exact length. We'll say a quarter-mile bike race where cyclists go lap after lap after lap and be really spectator friendly. It's not going to be one of those things where, like the Tour de France, where the bikes go zooming by and yay, okay, 5 seconds of spectating and you're done. Like, this will be a very spectator friendly event, and it will benefit community bikes. So there's going to be a strong element of not only getting inspired by people who are good racers, not only being inspired by collegians who are, building their credentials, but also, ways for like kids and families to get biking and to get active. So I'm really excited. That should be in April.
We're getting behind the scenes photos of Peter Krebs right now. With Judah Wickhauer, our director right there, the big smile. With one other, this one very much, the Mardi Gras bike ride?
Yeah, so then just it seems like everything happens at the same time.
Why is that? It's like a bag of chips.
Yeah, we can't do just one thing. So on Tuesday, March 1st, we'll be having the Mardi Gras bike ride, which will be just a fun, all ages appropriate ride that it will be maybe just 2 or 3 miles. We'll spend like all hour traveling 2 or 3 miles. We'll start out at Quality Pie, do a little neighborhood ride, then come back to Quality Pie, and at that point we're going to have a little procession through the neighborhood, hopefully with music. We'll go from there to Southern Crescent, which is a New Orleans restaurant, and then finish up at Champion Brewery. And there'll be live music with Mary Jo's and just fun. So that's on Tuesday, March 1st, Mardi Gras. We're gathering at 5:30. And I'll have a link for that on the page as well.
You got a lot cooking right now.
A lot cooking.
Dude, you are awesome. You are a connected guy who knows quite a bit that's going on. For those that are wondering about these links, we see the questions. We'll archive them all on iloveseville.com when we package this show later this afternoon. So all the shows are archived on the website iloveseville.com, and everything that he's talking about, including gateway links, will be included in the package. We're 90 minutes in, and I'm mindful of your time here. This man's doing the media circuit. You may hear him later on the radio. Can I say that?
You said it. So,
yeah. Okay. So you may hear him later on the radio.
Yeah. Later, I'm going to talk to Kendall Stewart, who's one of my favorite radio gals. So I'm pretty excited about that.
I want to close with this here, and we'll see if we can get to a couple comments before we close. How about this one? This is about the rezoning. Ask Peter why it's necessary to rezone so extensively and setting up the ultimate demise of R1. Why not allow for all styles of living and respecting the differences? There should have been a revision of the city to include everyone. So R1 is single-family detached. That's from Michelle. Why is it necessary to rezone so extensively? And she's worried about the demise of R1.
So I have just my own personal answer to that. So the R1 that we have is not necessarily reflective of what people think about for a residential neighborhood. So the block that I live on in Belmont, for example, has some of the new features and they're there because they predate R1. So one of my neighbors has a detached accessory dwelling unit that has an apartment over another apartment. It's like a garage that has an apartment above it. Another one of my neighbors has a granny flat that's in the basement of their house, and it feels like a total neighborhood that fits right in with the fabric of Charlottesville. It wouldn't be legal to do that now under the current zoning. And I don't think there are many people that would say that Belmont is an undesirable place to live.
Oh, it's coveted.
Right. And so this is not going to, the tweaks to R1 are not going to destroy the fabric of neighborhoods. I want to just be clear about that. On a tactical level, whether it's appropriate for single-family dwellings to be replaced or to be allowed to be superseded by apartment buildings or even, we'll say, garden apartments. That's case-by-case basis. Like a tiny lot should not have a gigantic, multi-story building. But again, like Belmont has, you could walk down Belmont Avenue and you can see single-family home with detached ADU, duplex, old house being converted into 6 apartments, single-family home, 2 duplexes, and Belmont Avenue is one of the greatest streets really in the Commonwealth.
Wow, that's high praise right
Right?
there.
I mean, try going there on Halloween and.
Is Belmont Avenue with the sundial? That's not Belmont Avenue.
Yes, that's Belmont Avenue.
The street artwork.
And Clark Elementary is on Belmont Avenue too.
Belmont Avenue is a great avenue.
Yeah.
It's a great road in town.
But also one of the things that makes it great is it has sidewalks.
Yeah.
So, simply increasing the zoning does not mean that this will be a better community. But it is a necessary thing to house, to make sure that everybody has a place to live. Like I just said, my kid is graduating from CHS. Where is he going to live when he comes home after college? We do need to grow, but in the right places and in the right way.
Closing thoughts, man. What are you the most proud of the efforts you guys have been making at PEC?
I just show up to work every day, like ready to go. I love the area here in Charlottesville. You have a vibrant community. You can meet the coolest people walking down the street, and within a 5-minute drive, you're in the country. Right, that didn't happen by accident. That's been the result of 50 years of work, 50 years of smart planning. And I'm pretty excited to be carrying that baton forward. I'm super excited about having more places to walk, bike, and be in nature. And most of all, I'm super excited about all the people I've met along the way and folks I get to work with in the community. Like, it's so inspiring.
You're inspiring. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Seriously.
Yeah.
We went almost 70 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, you were great, dude. Seriously.
Awesome.
Charlottesville and Central Virginia, lucky to have Peter Krebs, guys. And we will certainly welcome him back to the program in the future. Thank you for the knowledge. I felt one of the coolest things for me with doing this is like I feel like I just like sit back and learn.
Yeah.
Like, I just love doing this, Peter.
So everybody be sure to visit that blog post and fill out that survey about the Rivanna River Bridge.
We certainly will.
Awesome.
Tomorrow is the Friday edition of the show, which is often a recap of the week that was. And it was a heck of a week. Not only Peter Krebs today, but we had on Monday Lloyd Snook. Tuesday we had CEO Alex Erpy. Wednesday we had doctors Jeff Regalis and Dr. Eliza Holland on the program from the Urgency of Normal Toolkit. So we had a lot of heavy hitters on the program. We'll dot the I's and cross the T's and offer some analysis, feedback, and takes from the week that was tomorrow on the I Love CVille show. And of course, Real Talk, the Insider's Guide to Real Estate Life and the Pursuit of Happiness at 10:15 a.m. So 2 shows tomorrow, 10:15 a.m. and 12:30. For Peter Krebs and for Judah Wickower, my name is Jerry Miller, and this is the I Love CVille show on the I Love CVille network. Hasta luego.